After falling into a pit and waking up and finding a strange portal, I jump in and find myself stranded in this dry, dangerous desert. This is Minecraft Secrets of the Sands. It is episode 4 and I find myself in the Oasis. Now that I found one source of water, this is my chance for food. I found a weird looking vine and I broke it and I got an ophidian tongue. Didn't do anything and I could not eat it. My inventory was super cluttered, so I placed down a crate and started to dump all my stuff in there. Unfortunately, it didn't seem like I was the only one attracted to the Oasis. There were enemies coming at me from left and right. I ended up crafting a glycerine date with golden nuggets, but I could not eat it. And this is when the enemy with the poison sword came back. He got me down to half a heart and I was running for my life. This enemy was much faster than all of the enemies I've ever fought, and he had a poison sword. I couldn't regen, but I had 2 dates in my inventory. I ate them and I started regenning a little bit. I tried circling around to get back to my stuff to see if I could pick up a bow and start shooting him. I only had the 2 arrows I picked up off the ground, but I grabbed my short bow out of the crate and I did what I could. I shot both shots at him, but it wasn't enough to take him down, and I was completely out of food. I was gonna have to fight my way out of this. Fortunately, I played it really safe and I ended up taking down what was called an assassin. He didn't drop anything neat, but I was safe for the time being. I broke what I thought was sugarcane, but it ended up being papyrus. In hindsight, this did not do anything, so I threw it out. Then I started my farming ventures. Unfortunately, these stupid bandits would not leave me alone, and they did not even let me farm. So I had to bone meal what I could. The seeds I planted did not grow wheat, but they grew this thing called emmer. So far, I couldn't eat it straight, but I decided to farm a lot of it because I was confident that this would lead to food. I tried making a bread formation, but unfortunately, I couldn't craft anything with it, so it was time to figure out a different solution. In the meantime, I accidentally threw a dirty coin into the water and it popped out as a gold coin. So I threw all of them, and sure enough, they turned out to be all gold coins. That gave me the idea to try this with all of my other dirty relics. I had a dirty brooch and I threw it in and I got an achievement for it. This part was interesting. The first one gave me a silver brooch, but the next one gave me a sapphire brooch. I couldn't do anything with them, but hopefully they would be used for trading. I was looking very weak on weapons, so I decided to use this kumite and I made a stone guard sword. Except it wasn't that strong, but I ended up playing around with crafting recipes and I got a stone guard club that did 15 attack damage. I then used limestone to craft this quern. This was my quest to make bread. Whenever I clicked on it, it just spun around. So I decided to take my emmer and I clicked it on it. And luckily enough for me, I figured out the future for my food source. It started placing on the block and it started turning around. Once I clicked it with my hand, things popped out. This machine was turning all of the emmer into emmer flour. After that, I placed the emmer flour in the water and I got rewarded with emmer dough. After I had the dough, I placed all of it in the furnace and I was making bread. I was no longer starving. I had a sufficient source of food and now I was very comfortable. While I was waiting for my bread to smelt, I figured out exactly what the disenchanting scroll did. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It disenchants any item. After I had all my bread, I went out into the desert, into a sandstorm. It was tough to see, but hopefully my food could get me through the journey. After a while of running, I ended up stumbling upon a half-broken pyramid. It didn't have any of the chests, but the ladder that went down into the basement was still intact. I went to check it out. There was this weird block, and when I stepped in it, it was a trap block. It gave me blindness, but I was okay, and I ended up setting myself on fire. I was glad that this pyramid didn't have mobs in it because last time I heard a ton of noises coming from down below. I didn't see anything other in these passages, so I decided to break the trap, but I ended up clicking it with my pickaxe and that's how you disarm them. But every hallway was sanded in, so I couldn't go anywhere. I decided to keep looking and I found a fully intact pyramid. This was my chance. I made my way inside and I found Protection 3 Unbreaking 3 Iron Leggings, which was a very nice upgrade to have. Other than that, there wasn't much good loot in the chest, so I decided to make my way down. I was met with the same sort of labyrinth that I found before, so I was very careful not to set off any traps. I made my way through and I found a bunch of them, but I ended up turning them all off with my pickaxe. I could hear a ton of spiders down below, but I needed to find the way down, and soon enough I did. I found a ladder that went even deeper into the maze and a room that opened up. I could hear guards behind the walls. I disarmed every trap that I could before I stepped inside, and I found a guard waiting for me. Even though my stone guard club was very slow, it did a ton of damage, and taking down these guards was going to be very easy. I found another room with a spider, and when I went inside, there was some weird coffin thing. It was golden, and it looked pretty ancient. I took out the spider, which ended up being a tarantula, so I threw those out because that was pretty gross. And I went over to the coffin, but I didn't want to open it yet. I felt like this was the last room, so I wanted to explore all the other ones. I found a different room with a spawner and these weird phantom things. There were a ton of rooms just like that, and some rooms with just a bunch of crates in them. I opened up all of them, but so far didn't find much loot. They seemed like a lot of the same loot that was on the surface, so I kept exploring all the rooms. I was really curious about that giant golden coffin though. What was in there, I don't know, but I was pretty scared to open it. I heard a bunch of spiders around the wall, and I figured out that I could break the wall. I let the spider hit me, and it didn't end up doing much damage, which was a relief because I did not want to deal with poison spiders. Also, my stone guard club was enough to take him out with one hit. After finding a new room, I picked up a couple more disenchanting scrolls, and I got an enchanted golden date. So I guess there was a difference from the one I made. I went back over to the coffin and I clicked on it and it said the Pharaoh turns over in their sarcophagus. That was very creepy. But I kept clicking on it and it kept giving me the same message. I did not know how to open it. I did notice that there were a ton of unlit torches around the room and there were 4 blocks around the sarcophagus that were detailed. The Pharaoh must have been royalty, so I grabbed royal torches and I went back to the coffin room. I placed them down on all 4 corners, and I was gonna test my luck to see if I could open it. I placed down the 4th one, and nothing happened so far. So maybe this wasn't the technique to open this sarcophagus. But after I placed it down, I tried again, and I spawned the Pharaoh boss. Immediately, I backed up because I was in such a small room and I couldn't place blocks anywhere. There were also mummies that spawned with it, and it was gonna be tough to take it out when my reload speed was so slow on my club. The Pharaoh ended up getting through the door, and I was in serious trouble now. But my club was super powerful when I let it charge all the way, and it was doing a good amount of damage. But the Pharaoh kept spawning mummies, and I was trapped in this room. I tried blocking off the door with water, but my water just burned up. I couldn't break my way out, and eventually the Pharaoh got in the room. I got hit by the Pharaoh and I got lit on fire. It didn't seem to do too much damage, but after a few hits, I started taking more and more damage. I was debating eating my enchanted golden date and hopefully it would heal me back up. After more mummies spawned, I decided to retreat and eat it. The enchanted golden date gave me a ton of potion effects and 8 extra hearts. This was my time to take out the Pharaoh. These mummies were in my way, but I decided to ignore them and just go straight for the Pharaoh. One of the mummies ended up giving me the wither effect, but I was hoping the regen from the golden date would help me out. I went back in the room and started charging the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh was a little under half health, and I was very close, except the mummies were making it very hard to keep in contact with it. I lured it out of the room. I needed to do good damage by letting my club charge all the way, and I couldn't do that in the room. I had a good rhythm of walking backwards and letting my club charge. I thought I was about to be cornered by this stone guard, but I just ran right through, and he didn't mind me. I ate a piece of bread, and it was time to finish off the Pharaoh. The stone guard got in the way of a couple of my shots, but I lured the Pharaoh out, and it was down to 1 hit. I charged up my club, and I took down the Pharaoh. Nothing dropped, however, so I went back to the sarcophagus and I opened it. And I was met with some pretty interesting loot. I found a sword and it was called Adam's Will. It had an enchantment on it called Banish, and this apparently did double damage to any undead enemies. But I didn't even care what it did because it looked so cool. I also got a Protection 3 book and an Efficiency 4 book. Other than that, most of the loot was just loot that I've already encountered before. But this was my first boss takedown, and who knows how many other pharaohs there are. The only way to find out is to go exploring with more pyramids. It turns out this sword wasn't just a regular sword. I was holding an artifact, and I was gonna find more.